Right, so I'm here tinkering around with the new armor trims in terms of resource packs and data packs. And I thought I might as well record it, right? There's not a lot, and there goes the chest plate. There's not a lot of published material about trims and how they work and how to add new trims and all that, and I'm trying to figure it out. So I thought we might as well just go through it together and see if we can crack the code, right? Because obviously 1.20 is fairly new, so there's not a lot of published material on people messing around with it. So far, this is the best I've gotten, right? So I've added in a test pattern and a test material, but of course it is not quite displaying correctly just yet. So I'm still fine-tuning it. There are a lot of files, apparently, that you need to mess with in order to incorporate, especially when it comes to the material. The pattern might be a lot simpler, but I do want to be able to implement both of them. Why? Well, I don't really know. I guess just to prove I can, maybe. Materials, you don't really need to mess with. But anyway. So yeah, so what do we do? Okay, we'll start off with this. So obviously to give yourself an armor trim, you just have to copy over the data from what we've collected, right? So I threw this out and I used the data get command to see how it is written out in the NBT, meaning that we can now go ahead and give ourselves a iron chestplate, for instance, with a trim pattern using only NBT, right? We don't have to go through the smithing table and stuff like that, because I did notice a lot of questions online about giving armor trim, but nothing really on actually making new armor trims for the game. But anyway, so you do trim, right? Two curlies, and then you go material. Oh, if I can spell, with quotation marks, and pattern. So these are the two slots that you need to input the information. So in material, you can pick through all the different subtypes, so like quartz, lapis, redstone, etc. So if we type in redstone, since that's a nice discernible pattern, and then pattern, that's Vex. We will just use Sentry, right? Proof of it working. Cool. So we have Sentry armor, redstone material. Now, again, I've added tests to the game. So for instance, if I fill in both these slots with test, well, actually, I don't want to change the material. I want to just go test. Okay, so where is it? This one. It has redstone material, but test pattern. If I put it on, it still doesn't work. I was hoping that the pattern would still work, because all I've done for the pattern is copied over, I think, silence, and mess around with that. I haven't actually made a new pattern just yet, but we're still having model issues of it rendering properly. Baby steps. So I guess I will continue to tinker, and then hopefully I'll have a solution to show. And Eureka! So, got to work. Test armor trim, test material, and it's silence with a sort of opaque blue. Wasn't my solution. So I had to reverse engineer something that someone else has released, so we'll show credit where credit is due, right? So we have custom armor trims 1.19.4, prismarine trims, material, new patterns, and more by 30 Fangs. So thank you to them for working this out, because it is annoying how many things you have to exactly tinker with to connect all the dots and make these work. For one, you need both a data pack and a resource pack. Well, actually, so the data pack is more for the description on an item, right, to show it correctly. Not necessarily for the actual trim, but it is actually important because it allows you to put in other sort of titling. So for instance, the usual case is, it would say material prism, pattern prism for this one, prismarine, sorry. Whereas using a proper language file, you can change that, and you could say like, I don't know, demonic visage, or, you know, something more RPG, which is definitely going to be good to tinker with. The issue is I don't know how I want to set it up. So we'll look at the file, or the string of files I've had to use in order to actually get this to work. Right, so starting off in the resource pack. So the resource pack that I've been working on, I've added in the separate folder trim. Now, usually I just like to keep it as Minecraft, not rename it to whatever I am, because I'm not calling on custom things for, say, entities or anything like that. I'm mainly just reskinning items, which means that I am connecting the dots directly to the Minecraft directory, hence why I keep it named Minecraft in terms of assets, except for space, because this is another one I didn't necessarily come up with, but I have been using. So, we have trim and we have Minecraft. In Minecraft, we have the Atlas, which is the blueprint, if you will, for all of the different trims, and this the simple thing I thought we needed to modify in order to include new trim. So if we open this up, right, we have the sources, we have the trim texture or pattern, and then we have the material texture or trim. So to this, we have added our own test, right? And then we've also added this bone. Okay, so we're calling upon them. The directory is that other trim. I don't know if it's necessary. No, we'll tinker with this. We will merge the two. Actually, I'll create a backup, then we'll merge the two and see if they work by themselves. Because nice and neatly, I'd much rather not have to use two separate files. Because the way it works now is this is in the Minecraft directory, so it replaces the Minecraft version of the atlas. And then if we go to the other one, trim, we have another atlas, which is just the ones that we've created. Right, so good start. I merged the files. We still get test armor trim and test material, and the icon works. But does it work equipped? It does! Okay, perfect. So we can streamline everything, and therefore it's a slightly easier way to build these new textures. Okay, so now we can make a blank template file folder that I can upload, and we can go through it properly. Right then, time for the fun part, I guess. Explaining exactly how this works. Again, I don't have any sort of coding background or computer science background. I'm just pulling stuff apart and trying to connect the dots. Okay, so we have our data pack and we have our resource pack. Custom trims and custom trims. Both will be available on Planet Minecraft, so that you can use this as a template for any of the trims you yourself would like to create. So we'll break down the resource pack first, I think. Okay, so we've got assets pack.mc meta, generally what you'd find in a resource pack. Then inside Minecraft, again, I would just use the base directory, that way you don't have to worry about naming schemes. And then in here, we have 3 important files that we want to edit and make our own, right? So atlas, language, and textures. The atlas is the directory for the armor trims, so you need this armortrim.json, and in this it's got all of the base game trims and then the trim we've added. So this one, model armor trim, I've kept the naming very generic so that it should be easily understandable what you need to change. In fact, I will also just comment on these documents as well, saying rename the trim segment and rename the palette, the material, right? So material is just material. This, in quotation marks, is really important to the naming scheme. Generally, just keep everything the same. So your material, whatever you put inside here, put here as well. And then same for the trim. Just make sure the naming is easily recognizable, because it is weird to me how they connect the dots. I'm sure from a computer science sense or a programming sense, it makes a lot of understanding, but to me, it just, my brain can't compute. Okay, so then that brings us to the next document, this trim.json. So this is what actually constructs the model. So if we were to delete this, we'd go back to a pink person in Minecraft, right? In fact, we might as well just show that off. So if we go ahead, click delete. No, never mind. This is not the one that is in game. Let me do that so we can actually see. So assets, Minecraft, Atlas. If we delete this one and then reload the textures, F5 and then F3T. It does not prove my point. Interesting. Then I have no idea what that document is for. Never mind, I suppose. Okay, I guess it's not needed. Okay, we're gonna have to start again, because that to me was the confusing thing. That was what I thought I was missing and I need to create. Yet, apparently, no. It serves no purpose whatsoever. Which makes more sense to me, because I don't see how it fit into the problem I was having. Alright. We can clean stuff up. I will just quit out and quit back in and make sure that nothing goes awry. No, we still have a working texture. We give ourselves another... Oh, I don't have the template. Yeah, okay, still works perfectly. So that was not needed, and I guess it was just the naming schemes and how things connect the dots, really, that matters. Okay. I guess we'll start from the beginning then. Right, let's try this again. So, we've got our data pack and our resource pack. Open the data pack here, and we'll open the resource pack here. So inside the resource pack, we have our atlases our language and our textures. In the atlas, we need our armortrims.json, which is the directory that all the armors are assembled from, right? So we've got all the trim/models and then all the other patterns. So coast. Oh, that is in the wrong space. There we go. So we've got coast, sentry, yada yada, and then ours, which I've just labeled trim leggings, and then materials. Okay, so those are the ones you want to edit and change to whatever you want. So if you wanted to add, what's a good material that isn't utilized? Honeycomb, right? You could change this to honeycomb, and then recolor it to honeycomb. So that's the atlas. So this top segments are what you want to alter and change. Then we have, don't save, because I don't want to modify anything. Then we have our language document, which is also really important. Here, I've also just done .material and .trim. So again, I've kept the same naming schemes. Anything to do with the material is labeled material, and you just want to change that so it's uniform across all the different documents, and same with trim. And here it just says example, so this is where you'd input your little message that you want to display on the actual equipment. So again, you don't have to stick to the normal scheme of this being the material and this being the trim. You could add in, certain messages. If you want to use this method to reskin entities in armor, well then you could have the armor labeled as skin of blah, 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 right? Something like that. And then we have the textures, and this is the important part. So trims, color palettes, and models. In the color palettes, we have the trim palette base, so this is necessary, and then we have our one that we can recolor and retexture, which is just material. So right now, it is just a blue schematic. I think I nabbed this from the example one that I pulled off Planet 30 Fangs, his pack. But yeah, you can just recolor this to whatever the gradients you want, and then that's what is displayed over the armor. I do apologize for the weird, imaging. Right, I'm trying to display my desktop so I can go through the folders, and then we've also got Minecraft, and I hate using windowed mode with the white bar on top, so yeah. Anyway, so as you can see, it's got the gradient across the armor. So this one seems to clip. Does all armor normally clip with the... It must. Anyway, so then, from there, we can now go over the models. So armor, got trim, and trim leggings. Now, I've used silence for this, but I will paint over the little boxes or hitboxes, right? So you know where you can edit and how it wraps. So for instance, this is the helmet. No, that's helmet? That's the chest, I know that. That's the shoulders. I'm pretty sure that's the belt, and that's the helmet. I think that's correct. And then this is for the leggings and, of course, boots. Right. I think that's correct. I'll have to look closely and dissect it. But yeah, so those are the two things that you want to edit. Now, naming, again, so you just want to change this trim portion, so not the underscore leggings. So again, if we were to use, say, honeycomb, and, I don't know, we could say bee or stinger, right? So you rename this to stinger, and this to stinger leggings. Then in the actual atlas, you would modify the trim here to stinger, and this to stinger underscore legs. And then for the material, you'd rename this to honeycomb, and this to honeycomb. Okay, and that way they still connect and they still use each other to actually model the armor on the entity. I will try to succinctly say it in comments in these documents. And then that brings us to the actual data pack. So here we have Minecraft, we have trim material and trim patterns. Material, this is essentially for the crafting mechanic, right? Or the icon display as well. So right now it's using the item model index 8, which is diamond. That's why the item in my inventory is blue. Like it has the diamond reflection on it. And then for the example armor trim, it is using the color that is specified up here. Okay, so you change this color. The item models, I don't know if you can add further colors to them. Otherwise, you can only pick from 1 through 10, which is all the different trims that are added. I will look into it. If I can, I'll stick it in the file with everything else so you can modify it. And then the other one that we have is just for the trims. So patterns, trim, and here we've got trim. So again, this is the segments you're renaming. The asset name and the asset ID are important. They're what build the model, and again, everything has to be uniform. So everywhere I've used trim, you want to rename trim. Except here. This is inbuilt, so I should probably come up with a better thing. I might just label it example 1 and example 2, or rename 1, rename 2, and essentially everything that has the same name, change. right? So change all the materials to something, change all the trims to something, including this one, which is the language. It's tied to the language. Again, I do apologize. I'm not the best at teaching, right? I self-taught. But if this is helpful, not helpless, in any way, great. If you have questions, now that is a much better forum for me to go back and forth and try to explain things. So if you've got questions, leave them, and we'll go through them. The other thing that I will just tack on to the pack, which I haven't actually done, and is a lot easier to do, is the icons, right? Because you don't necessarily want the normal trim icon for the armor. You might want to make it something special. So that's in itself much easier to tinker with than this. Although in saying that, there are a lot of files for you to actually do. Right, last little proof of concept. So yeah, we've changed the icon, right? So the way this is done is through a giant list of files to edit. So for instance, this is netherite, so netherite chestplate, material, trim, and this is where the nomenclature of the naming is really important again. So in the normal Minecraft directory, this material will be whatever the material is, so gold, redstone, yada yada yada. For us, because again, we're using that wording material, so anywhere material shows up, you have to rename it, including here. So the game logically dictates that material goes in here on the model whenever it calls for it. So you need to make sure to rename material to whatever you change the material to. Then inside, we are just calling upon the normal chestplate icon. And then layer 1 is the trim material. Again, it's tying in material, which I had hoped would include the color scheme, right? Because again, the material is the color palette. But as you can see here, it's orange, right? So the reason for this is because the item index on the data pack file. If we go back to one of these, be here somewhere, not that one. There we go. So in the data pack, we've got trim material, trim pattern, and then in the material, we have this item model index. So then this is what actually determines the color on the model. So you've got any of the values from 0.1 all the way to 1.0, and they're all the inbuilt color schemes. I don't know how to alter it, how to alter those 10, 9, 10. So for now, the only way I could sort of think to circumvent it would be to add another layer to this model. So for instance, if we copy and paste that again and change this to layer 2, my hope would be that A, you can use multiple layers, and B, that this will override the color palette and it should just be white. Let's see, F3T. No, it does not. Okay, so there is no happy solution for that, unfortunately, other than just changing the icon completely. So if you were to make your own texture for the icon, whenever, again, this trim is called upon, then you could just substitute these values in here for your normal resource pack icon. That should probably be enough for now for anyone who wants to play around and mess with all these different textures. So I'll leave it there, and I will continue to tinker and, well, present anything else I find that is a little bit useful. So yeah.